Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone tonight on this cold New England Friday? Hope I'm coming through. How am I sounding? You have found yourself at the Toy Armada live on this Friday night on this funny anniversary. It is the exact 30th anniversary of my first day at Kenner. I am Aaron Archer. I am a 30-year veteran of the big-time toy game, even though I did a little bit of toys before Kenner. And I worked on Transformers, G.I. Joe, Batman, Star Wars Ep1, and we often talk about the behind-the-scenes and kind of thought process behind the toys, more so than toys themselves, often Transformers, but tonight, we're going to take a little detour back in time. So before we get started, it looks like a good amount of people have shown up a little earlier tonight than most nights. I'm going to probably do 2 hours easy tonight. So El Kevo, Patrick, Little Tree, Ninjatron, how are you? Arshay, Frank, T-Formers 2002, how's it going? Wong Kang Ma, am I saying that right? Again, I don't often wear my glasses online here, but they probably would help. Although not a very good look that way. Maybe my other ones look a little better. I have two pairs of glasses that almost look exactly the same. Not too bad. Started a new job, Ninjatron. I hope it's a decent one. Hope you get to use some creative skills, if not all of your creative skills. I'll tell you what, people. Things are changing. I can't blame AI, but I can certainly look at a lot of things, and I wonder what's going on. It's harder and harder to find corporate work. Easy to find opportunistic work, but interesting times for us creatives. I was finally paid today for a bit of work I did in the summer that was finished mid-July. It was finished actually before, I believe, TFCon Toronto. And I just got paid for it. Crazy out there. Crazy. Star Warrior Prime Reviews, how are you? Alan, how's it going? So we got a good crew tonight. I hope you guys want to go back in time and hear about my toy origin story a little bit. Let me talk about what I remember, and I did a pretty decent job today of tracking down some interesting photos and whatnot. So this won't just be me rambling. We'll have some visuals to go along with it. So I hope you're up for the journey. So today was my 30th anniversary in toys. I started in January 17th, 1995. It was the day after Martin Luther King Day. I had taken the first couple weeks in January off because that would have traditionally been my college break. We didn't go right back after the first of the year. And I had plans to go visit my friends in Florida, which we will touch on. And so I started a little bit later than the beginning of the year, which is kind of strange. And in a long rambling type of story, I would go on and on about how that messed me up as far as vesting in the company and stock options and bonus pools and pension plans. But at 22, I didn't know what the hell all that stuff was, and so I started in mid-January. So we're going to go through what my first day was like. I'm going to pepper it with a little bit of before and after. I have my sketchbooks from that era that I was doing in prep for the job, and then some interesting things after I got the job. So if you're so inclined, please check out my like and subscribe, do all that great stuff. Thank you very much. You can check out my art that I put up on Aaron Archer Official on the Instagram. Got a Patreon going for Toy Armada, which I appreciate the support already, and get deeper into toy stuff. And I've been posting a lot of weird toy one-off images that otherwise I wouldn't post because they're kind of behind somewhat of a paywall. So you can check that out, or check out archermonster.com for my shop where I sell sketchbooks of my work, as well as the original artwork you see on the Instagram. So with that out of the way, Bigum, Larry, welcome. I thought I would go through a little bit of my experience at Kenner. So I interviewed in October of 94 for this position, and from October to December I worked with a gentleman named Ham Woodhouse on some coming out of my interview. I had a good interview. They were impressed with what I did, but they were worried that I wouldn't have graduated college. They were looking for someone currently, and I was still one semester, or probably two, to be honest, away from graduating. So I did my interview, had a good day. We'll get deeper into that some other time. In the meantime, I did some gargoyles, basically concept work, coming up with ideas and features around the Disney gargoyles. What would have been like the third wave, I guess, different types. I remember Ham sent me a banker's box full of first shots of gargoyles, like they were all in their molded color, so I would see what they were like, and that was really cool. That was my first experience with any kind of prototypes, obviously, or in development parts of the toy business. So hey, Wind Chargers here, how you doing? And so I did that, sent some stuff in, it all worked out, and they offered me a job. And I think I got offered the job late December. It was definitely before the end of the year. And I took the job, regardless of me not finishing. So I basically left school at that point and went down to Cincinnati on the 16th. I think I started on the 17th, and I think I drove down there on the 16th into corporate housing. And so that was crazy. And I remember going into the building the first day. I think I'd met my friend Wayne for dinner. And I remember going in the first day and doing my HR paperwork. And I'm not sure I knew how to spell Cincinnati at the time, to be honest with you. So, pretty wild. So let's look here. So this is the Elsinore building, because it is on a little road called Elsinore Place in Cincinnati. This is one view of it. That red dot represents where probably my favorite office in the Bat team was, or right across the hall from that window as well. I had two offices kind of bang bang. So take a look at that building. It's a little bit of a mishmash. And then this is the building today, or on their sales site. I've added the blue line to denote the 5th floor, which is the floor that I spent the majority of my time. I did end up on the 3rd floor for a little while, but mostly I was on the 5th floor. So this building is now a medical facilities building or something, but The rumor about this building always was, if you look at it, right, look at the first and second floor, the middle part, the top 2 floors. The rumor always was that this was a very good construction company, and this was like partial remnants of several projects over a couple years that they used to make a building. I don't know if that is true, but that is the funny urban legend that we all went with. I think when I flew down there for my interview, it might have been the first time I had ever taken a cab. So let's go through this. The first floor was QA, the mailroom, and had a little cafe and like a larger presentation room that really wasn't ours, but we could rent it out for what usually was layoff meetings or official kind of bigger full team kind of meetings, all hands on deck. I think I was in there once with an all designer meeting talking about Toastmasters because they were worried about us presenting back then. This is going back to 1995, so I have given you the floors as they were laid out in 1995. If I talk about a different era of my Batman or Star Wars or whatever, there would be different things on different floors, because as things flex or maybe move to Rhode Island in advance of us moving to Rhode Island, like Tonka and some girls' stuff went to Rhode Island, and the third floor became the Star Wars floor. But that's a future story. Star Wars doesn't really exist here quite yet. So the second floor was Nerf XRC, which was an RC program we were doing back then. Action Masters, which were just painted die-cast figures. Gargoyles was still wrapping up. Tonka. We had our HFE station in that area, which you got to think 1995, almost pre-internet, and for all intents and purposes. So we had a direct line, a video feed kind of thing that you could dial up. It had a name, but we can't recall it at the moment. That went right to Hasbro Far East, HFE, and we could put a model on the table and it would photograph the model, and you could make notes on the paper, and it was one way to communicate with engineers back then. Other than that, it was faxes. And me and Bono are going to get in here on a podcast and really talk about what it was like to design toys pre-digital. Yes, thank you, Ninjatron. We were not designing Action Masters, the Transformers there. These were die-cast. I think there were Aliens, Superman, Star Wars, Batman, might have been a Predator. There was a lot of them that didn't ever come out. But they were basically, think of D&D miniatures, kind of metal die-cast figures that were then painted, overpainted. I never understood them. I never had to work on them. And, I'm going to get into the timeline here, so you'll see what I mean. It was a weird time, the mid-90s. The third floor was girls' toys, girls' sculpting, all soft goods, and girls' toys leadership. When I say girls' toys, that's just what it was called. Don't put me on a list. It was boys' toys and girls' toys back then. Fourth floor was reception, accounting, HR. That's where we had our break room, quote unquote. That if you look behind the building, that is a car deck port. Our break room overlooked the car port. So if you went, we always would, my little crew, we'd often meet at 3:30, good time for a mid-afternoon break. And we'd watch the fools that were really leaving early and or had a late lunch or whatever they were doing. So we got a kick out of that. That was a kind of a funny thing we did. The fifth floor, which is the floor that I predominantly worked on, and that is the blue line on this image, there were two elevator shafts in the middle of the building, so you should kind of know that, and then the floors wrapped around the core of the elevator shafts. So that was Batman, Boys Toys sculpting. G.I. Joe was already there. Hasbro had moved G.I. Joe, and they were working on G.I. Joe Extreme when I arrived. Predator that team that had been doing Predator as well, was canceled by the time I got there. The legal department and the president of Kenner was also on the fifth floor. So there was also a chairman's boardroom that we would sometimes present in over there. So that was interesting. The sixth floor was packaging, our main presentation space, where when Alan Hassenfeld or the important C-suite or whomever of the Rhode Island team would come in for presentations, this was the floor that we gave those presentations. There was a kind of a big kitchenette next to it. There was space behind, but that floor also had the photo studio, video editing, and market research. Largely, we consider it the packaging floor. And for us designers, that is the floor that had the color copier, because there was one color copier in the building for packaging, and we would work late night and use it for our needs. And I'll talk about a little bit of how we would use the color copier back then. Oh yeah, the Action Masters did connect together, didn't they? I forgot about that. Largely that was their play feature, which is crazy. And there were trading cards. Yeah. The president of Kenner when I started was Ginger Kent. And then it became Tom McGrath. But for the first couple years I was there, it was Ginger Kent. And I was a 22-year-old. I didn't know how long. I have no idea what her story is, how long she had been with the company or whatever. But I can tell you a lot of the head people at Kenner had been with the company a long time. So there was a certain familiarity, and everybody kind of knew most people's strengths and weaknesses, and we all worked together to make that all work. So, I liked the people, the management generally at Kenner. It was a different type of confrontation we would have. You could have real debates back then about pros and cons of decisions. That's not really the case anymore. Business people have come in and they dictate. Designers can often feel like short order cooks if it goes off the rails. Ginger Kent was a redhead. I pretty much do believe I do believe she was. Or she presented that way. I don't know her particulars, but yeah, I do believe she kind of had that more on the red side. Absolutely. So that is the Elsinore Place building that I worked. So that middle section that you could see from the previous photo, right there, that red dot. That was my second Batman office. That's where I would have designed a lot of the Batman and Robin product, fair amount of the Legends of the Dark Knight stuff that I did. Alien Resurrection was done in that office. And then I also had an office on the right side of the building when I was on special projects, which was a pretty cool office too, because across the street so this road here on the right, across the street from there was the Cincinnati Weekend Home facility, where if you had gotten caught drunk driving kind of thing, or had to go through some sort of 2-day program, that is where the program was housed. So we would see these guys in their jumpsuits playing basketball and stuff. These are not violent offenders. These aren't people that killed anybody or anything really, really bad. They just kind of, hey, if you really don't want to get caught up in the legal system, you're going to take this training course. Okay. So we will watch these guys from across the street. So that was an interesting office. That's a complete aside, but that's giving you the lay of the land. So that is that. Let's go up the line here. So this is me in my first office. This is probably pretty much early days. What can I say about this? So my first day, I got in and we got these drafting tables. Okay, so there is a motorized rise and lower function on that table that you wouldn't necessarily see. The table can go upright, a full 90 degrees, or down. It has a resealable, this was back in the glory days, okay, people. It has a resealable X-Acto cutting mat on the board itself, even though we would still use a cutting mat. What you are looking at on the far end of the table, that black stripe that goes from left to right, that is a drafting machine. The thing that is kind of shiny round under the lamp is the backside of a kind of up lateral and I don't know how to say it, but I could move that any way and have two straight lines always, or 90 degrees or 45 degrees, whatever I locked it in at, and do your pattern drawings. It was on a glide that went across the whole table, and you could just you wouldn't have to use a ruler necessarily. You could just move this thing around and had measurements on it and everything else. You could see my light there. That is a old school Stormtrooper helmet. That was mine. I don't remember what happened to that one. This picture is probably taken later in 95. Some of the things on the wall there, if you are an astute viewer, and I'd like to point out to Ninjatron right above the lamp, the black lamp in the middle, right above that, from a perfect guide from Star Blazers, there was a little image of the portrait of Captain Argo that they had put on the ship, and I blew that up. It was one of the first things I did on the copier at Kenner, was blow this giant Captain Argo image as big as I could reasonably get it back then, and that's what that is, which is pretty hilarious if you ask me. What else is in here? This might be a little later. There's a little Batman Forever boat action there, so yeah, it could be in that first couple months. The red drawings and black drawings around the corkboard there were my basically office doodles while we were in meetings. I would just draw, and I'd hang them up because I'm an artist, and it was kind of weird at a toy company. Not everybody kind of celebrated, art, and probably rightfully so. So this is a later story, but I'd continued to put these kinds of things up, and that is what attracted Steven Spielberg to walk into my office versus any office in the entire building, because I had these very animated, interesting characters, and that was the first time I met Steven Spielberg in this actual office with some of that same stuff on the walls, and he literally walked into my office, compelled to look at what I had drawn on the walls. Not really to meet me. He was intrigued by the stuff, and he looked over and, "Is this your work?" And I said, "It is, sir." And something like that, "It is." And he said, "Great stuff," and walked out. I saw a lot of scared VPs and CEOs and because I could have said anything at that point. I've told this story sometimes at conventions. I really could have said anything and really messed up what was on its way to being the DreamWorks deal, I believe. I'm drinking a beer. So kind of interesting. So that was my office. You can see some of the Batman stuff there. One thing I was doing, let's bounce around a little bit. So I was keeping sketchbooks. This was my sketchbook right before I started Hasbro. And I could almost tell the day that I knew I was going to interview for Kenner, because my sketchbook started to get full of action figure-y type things. But before that, I had high school friends that were in a rock and roll band down in Florida largely, and they had me do their album cover. I don't think I have it here. And so in the 90s, a band called Spider Monkey out of Florida. There's a couple Spider Monkeys. Sorry, I should have marked this off. I apologize. I thought it would pop right up, but it is not. So anyway, they had me. It was the 90s, and they toured all over the South. They opened for Hootie and the Blowfish and all this kind of stuff. They became pretty big in a certain zone of area. And so that is what is in, let's see here, in the middle, that kind of glared out photo. Let's see if I can pull this out. Is actually, let me see if I can move this. Alright. Is actually this poster. So if you want some of the early Aaron Archer published stuff, kind of funny, but this was their album and this was their album cover. A little, fun young fellas back in the day, but kind of had this space ape, carrying off a girl. Pretty much still kind of thing I would draw, and so that is what is in the middle of that photo. I'm still good friends with the drummer I've known since 2nd grade and bass player I've known since 10th grade. So it's been a minute. So that's what that is. So little inside ball. You guys know me as Transformer guy, and I love you for it, and I love Transformers for what it's provided me in my youth as well as a profession. But I've done a lot of weird things. Worked for American Greetings, and which I actually have some of that stuff. I have my interview. Most of the stuff I interviewed, the same portfolio, because I interviewed out of college for the Hasbro role and got it. So I never updated my portfolio. So I still have the same exact, it was like a time capsule, because I had a job for 18 years after that. I do have the same portfolio that I showed Hasbro on the day I interviewed, but that's not what today is. Today is my first day. So that was my first office. This was the hallway, so this is a little later. My office would have been on the right, kind of back in office here. This was the team at the time. I'm wearing my Manchester United Sharp branded shirt. I often talk about a guy named Steve Bono. He's down on the front row there on the left, the gentleman there holding the sign. And Todd Patrick, who became an engineer, and Joe Matico, who were an engineer on Transformers, are also in this photo. They're the kind of pink shirt and the guy right behind him with the glasses. They became Transformer engineers along the way. So I'd worked with a lot of these guys for a lot of years. And this is another looking the other way down what we'd call the Batman hallway. And this is Randy Dunn, an engineer, Steve Bono in the Mickey Mouse shirt, me. It's acid wash jeans era, people. I'm holding George Bosnos there, who was the designer on Dragonheart product and a lot of the, I guess what you would call, most of the Beast Wars era after Wave 2 or 3. Anything that would have pearl or chrome or unique things. He did the micro sets. He was in charge of design for a long time in the early Beast Wars days after Chris Gross left. And so that's another view. And you can kind of see, this is a little later. This is probably late 96, probably, given that there's Legends of Dark Knight and Total Justice stuff on the wall. But we were able to keep this team intact. And then the guy on the right is an engineer named Paul Van. He's got a long Dutch name, but we called him Paul Van. Yeah, George Bosnos went to Art Center, which, for those of you who don't know, there's very few of the high quality art schools you can really go to learn high end industrial design. Art Center is, gotta, I can't speak to it. I don't know where it is today, but one of the top 3 always. So he had stuff in Japanese car styling that he did in college, models he made. He was amazing. So he was a process guy. So he liked pearlescence and metallics, and that is where Dragonheart gets all those weird chromes and pearls and metallic overshoots, and that was all George's really passion about material processes. And then some of the Beast Wars stuff, when you think of that shark that kind of had that chrome feel or pearlescent feel to it, and any of that kind of stuff, he really pushed the envelope on that. That was his thing. Every designer has a thing they like to do. So this brings me to my first day. One little short story is I'm left-handed, and the first drawing machine, so that black line in the back of my drawing table there that slides back and forth across the table, they bought me a right-handed one, which meant it would have slid this way, and the machine would have come down and rotated around, and then I would have been left-handed trying to manipulate it. And so I needed a left-handed one so I can manipulate it with my right hand and draw my lines with my left hand and have the whole thing out of my way. And they bought a right-handed one and set up a right-handed one. And these things are not great to set up. I told you it glides from the top to the bottom, and that all has to be tuned in. This is, you are talking a Fortune 500 company that's making art. So you're buying the best drafting table. You're buying the best lamp. The machine is the best, so it's not bullshit that you're putting on to these tables. So it was kind of somewhat of a kerfuffle that I had to get a new machine. So that was the main thing on my first day, which gave me time to kind of learn what was happening on the team. So at that time, there were a few designers, Mike Brand, who sat right across from me in the windowed office, that I'd later move into, I believe I moved into that one. And a guy named Bob Lindsay, a guy named Jeff Strait. There was me. 2 weeks after me was Steve Bono. But then there was this gentleman. This is Ham Woodhouse. I've talked about Ham several times. I talked about Ham on the Valaverse segment that I did about Transformer or Batman animated series. If you've heard of that one or seen that one. So Ham is no longer with us. I cannot believe he passed away in 2019. I looked that up. I can't believe it's been that long. But day one, so Ham was a guy that built models. He loved to build models. He was great at building models. He'd come up with these crazy things, but they were vacuum formed, and you would literally see the wires going to the batteries, and they were like silhouettes of a toy feature. He didn't care, like you'd put the veneer on it later. That was his attitude, and rightfully so. And but he made some of the greatest toys. This guy worked on Ghostbusters. He worked on the Batman. He worked on Megaforce. I think Chuck Norris. He had done Matchbox stuff before that. A lot of Star Wars. He created the Darth Vader talking helmet. He did the Optimus talking helmet. He did a lot of the lightsabers and the buildable lightsabers. These are all his concepts. He was a mech tech master. So he shows up in my office. He's like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" He was in my interview. Nice guy, and he gave me the Gargoyles job. So he knew I was a drawer. So the beauty of toys is you can be a lot of different things in toys. You could be a wonderful concept person. You could be a nice technical person. You understand the engineering. You can be a great just raw idea inventor. And everywhere in between. You could focus on the legal, the color, like George liked to figure out the material processes. How can we make this interesting? So Ham loved to make these models. They worked. They articulated what they could do, but he didn't give a crap about necessarily making them then look good. That's not where he got excited, right? I often talk about what the designers do and don't want to do. If he sold the toy concept in, that's his toy, right? Where other people are like, well, I did the sculpt input, so it's my toy. No, it's always Ham's toy. So the drafting machine is a specific sort of drafting. I don't know if it's a particular drafting table, but it's a thing you buy that rolls on the type of table you have. We're going back 30 years, and that was already, let's be honest, toys kind of changed last. So it was a bit of an antiquated concept even then. So I don't know if they're still out there. I would assume they are, but they got to be somewhat boutique at this point. So anyway, Ham brings me his model, and it when I show you the actual product, it is what the model was. All I did was kind of put the outer casing on his already fully formed idea. But Ham was a great mentor. Anybody that worked with him, you couldn't find anybody to talk bad about him. He was giving and helpful and insightful and a genius. And I was very happy that I can look back on my first day and go, the first thing I did was this guy. So this ended up being called Lightwing Batman, which was a deluxe Wave 3 probably. So this is when we talk about when we talk about having a long tail of a product line, this would have probably been a product that was made for the DVD release, or the VHS release. It would not. This was definitely not for launch. I started in '95. The movie came out. Batman Forever came out in '95, and this very much was a deluxe item at that time. $12 or $10.99 to $12.99. Had a light up feature, 2 light up features actually when I show it to you, and it came out. It would have had to been another year after the movie, so this definitely was the video release kind of thing, and it just shows you these were heavily designed items for something that would have been that late by today's standards. When you say blueprints, I have this somewhere, this drawing, I believe, somewhere. I have different drawings of different stuff, but what, the Batman art? Make a cool shirt. So this is, and I did this. This is one of maybe 3 or 4 inputs that I did that were like 2 up. Again, this was day 1. I didn't draw small at that point, and for I didn't know what I was doing exactly. Let's be honest. I started drawing this like pretty much after Ham brought it to me. But you can see what I drew versus what the toy became there. And this is the toy. So I think you can, let's see here, kind of get a sense a little bit. Let's see. A little bit and get a sense of what's happening there. So, any of you that have been following me on Aaron Archer Official have seen me draw Cybertron and Unicron and a lot of tech stuff. You can see the same kind of tech here in the little, Aztec kind of weird graphic thing that I do with my tech with these straight to slant straight lines. So I was able to put my kind of internal art style, if I can say it that way, something I do inherently as me as a creative person, on the first toy I touched, which is kind of odd. So I have that toy here. This was green tag. I might have the green tag somewhere. This is one of the examples later on. I started having them put the Batman logo on there because I'm like, why are we not using that space? Let's see here. This came out, well, it says in 95, but I don't know if that's true. There's no way I could have worked on it in January and it would have been out during 95. You can see that is the era that we're talking about. So it was later wave stuff, but we wouldn't have the micro stuff right away. I believe the ski suit came a little bit later. I think that might have been it on that side of things. So there's that. And then I have him here. And right before I went on, I ran upstairs and said, you know what? I have not put batteries in this guy in a long time. So what's weird about this, let me shut one of my lights off here. I don't think that'll make any difference. There was a red light in the gun that flipped around. There are 2 AA batteries in this thing, because this is way before watch batteries would have been used. Those things were way expensive, and the feeling was at Kenner, like if you made a parent buy watch batteries, you might as well just pack it in, because they're twice as much as what the toy was at the time. But with Try Me and different things over the years, that became. So the idea with this toy, and I think you can kind of see the wings a little bit, a powerful light that's in the torso that would transfer light through the mushrooms and the clear areas of the legs and arms, as well as edge glow into the wings. The chest glows up really well. It doesn't, the light, there's no way to have light transfer between too many walls, even if it is clear, semi-clear, and have the intensity of light pass through each barrier. It just isn't going to happen. So you can see it a little bit on the shoulders, because the mushroom is right on that light. But once it doesn't then reflect down into the arm very far, and it doesn't capture the mushroom legs very well. So there's actually 2 buttons on the top here, which is crazy. And then the back is just some sort of basically a battery box, I'm not gonna lie. But there again, brand the plastic, put that logo, can you see that? The bad logo there, right there on the plastic. So this is my first, I consider this my first action figure at Kenner for sure. I worked on it my first day. Jerry Javoyne, who was an engineering co-op, later became a marketing manager of Transformers. At the time he was an engineering co-op, he helped do the wings, which is pretty cool. So a lot of weird connection there on that one. Being on Batman was the best brand Hasbro or Kenner had going as far as active entertainment, movies and cartoons. It's where I cut my teeth on a lot of this stuff. A big brand, Warner Brothers DC, that we met with them often, both in LA and in New York. So I got to see a big brand doing big brand things, and that was impactful to me for sure. And being on the Batman brand, I just got exposed to so much. Did I pick the colors on that one? I believe I think I did. Ham, I think, transferred the model to me. I don't think I was doing that work for him. I think this was it became my project to run through the system. So that meant, I made those choices. I don't look at that and go, that looks like me as well. Yeah, I guess that is the rookie card. If you really want to go digging deep, that would be the Aaron Archer toy rookie card. And I'm going to show a few others here next, but that is the one. VHS, man. We got 2 years in some cases out of Batman. You'd have your initial launch before the movie sometimes. The movie would hit, it'd be big, it would stay in theaters for 6 months or longer. And then, another 6 months after that, you'd have a DVD, or I keep saying DVD release, but VHS release. And that was like the movie came out again, because then kids could watch it daily, every day, all day. And then they wanted more toys from that. So, it might have been the 95 to 96 branding might have not been the release date, but the contract date. Sometimes that happens. Blister cards aren't as much a thing. Double A batteries on that one. Wind charger. Ooh, man, that's a shift in the conversation. Do you think Hasbro is going to end up keeping the Marvel license, or do you think they're going to lose it? I don't know. There's a few ways you can look at that. Is Marvel and Disney and Star Wars Disney, are they together, or can they be separated? I mean, they're dealt with separately, but do they really want to deal with 2 different companies? I don't know. Ooh, sorry. If I don't really know, I don't have inside baseball, but if I was looking at how the company is operating lately with its partnerships with Super 7 and all these, Mattel, Lego, it's setting itself up to be a partner company with its licensing, so a licensing company. So the question I have then is, do they want to invest in a a Marvel or a Star Wars, because you've got to lay out money and commit to given outcomes before you even then make the product. And if Hasbro is going to go to a different model, like a licensing model, perhaps they don't want the Marvels and the Star Wars, because that's just money out. As much as you get money in, absolutely, but it's a different type of hassle. If you can just throw all G.I. Joe and Transformers and Micronauts and stuff to all these other companies, and you do a few things, Transformers, do they really want it? I don't know. As your first toy design, was it strange, odd to you to design a Batman figure that wasn't calling for a traditional Batman style design? No. I'm if you look at the sketchbooks here, I'll just flip through this kind of real quick. I'm an iterative designer. So this is back in 94. I'm not precious at all about a lot of stuff. If we make rules and things need to be continuity-wise, then let's do that. But I'm raw idea guy. So it did not bother me. You can see here at a point where I think I got the job. It did not bother me that I did not do a lot of traditional Batman. I don't get excited about looking at a photograph like a monkey and draw and put little articulation places and match up colors and stuff. Quite honestly, a fool can do that kind of toy design, and you can be really thorough and love that, and that's fine. But that is not where I come from. I come from more of the Unicron trilogy. Like, let's make some stuff. Let's do some fun toys. Not that you have to be not reverent to the past, but at the same time, you don't have to be slavishly connected to it either. I started doing some Batman trucks and things. There's a lot of weird stuff in here, but I'm very iterative that way, if that makes sense. Traditional Batman toys to me they are what they are, and that's fine. I did do some of them, but I was the right guy for the right time as far as the crazy Batman stuff. And Batman Beyond Wave 1 is me. It's all my fault, but that is exactly what Kenner wanted. So I achieved what the president wanted, even though I'm not happy with it either. But that just shows I'm willing to just do crazy stuff. Bobby Valla thinks they're going to lose it. The DC license for McFarlane and Spin Master is also expiring around the same time. Yeah, Batman's up as well. So you can see a master swap. I can imagine Mattel gets one of them, and then Hasbro gets Batman back. You can imagine stuff like that could happen. There's only so many big companies. The industry is shifting and changing. Who knows where that, is it worth spending all that money? They probably need better partnerships than just thinking of it as a cash cow. Let's see here. So that's that guy. So here's some other items that I drew up within the first 6 months of being there. Justin Cena, fellow toy industry guy. How you doing? Love the content and hearing all your history in the industry. Keep it up. I appreciate that. Thank you. I had a lot of fun. I've met enough people that this is an interesting thing. And one of the things why I do this is, no disrespect to anybody, but there's there's people that just love these brands. There's people who do the historical deep dive and know every little bit of a brand, which Protoman is the king of that. He'll sing you the theme songs in Japanese. I'm an inside guy, and there's not too many guys that were in rooms making goofy decisions or fighting against marketers or stuff that have decided to be able to talk, because usually the consideration is you're going to be blackballed or whatever. And I'm in my 50s. I'm largely out of the main toy game at this point, so it's not, it's fun to tell these stories, and I'm glad to share them. So I hope they bring some value to you. Let's see here. So this is all stuff I did in that first 6 months on Legends of Batman. I did the Energy Surge Batman, largely based off the Frank Miller armored Batman. I'm not going to go into the stories of these, but I'm giving you the flavor of what it was like in my earliest Kenner days. I'll leave that up. I did the Pirate Two-Face. This one I also drew within the first week of starting at Kenner. The Legends of Batman line was already ongoing. Certain figures were popular or sold well, like the Pirate Batman. And they wanted more, so I did the Two-Face and the Joker. So any of you that were kids back then that had to play with the funny Batman and pirate stuff that we did, that was all based on what was happening in the industry. Lego had pirate stuff. Playmobil, I think, had pirate stuff. So it just was a viable toy sub-segment at that time. Yeah, trying to ski down, yeah. This is an animated guy I did early. I was talking about this guy on the Bobby Valla episode. His name is Lock Up, not Lock Down. I think this is nothing more than the style guide image of the guy that I rendered a little more. And that was about it. So there's a lost Batman figure. And then this is the one that would have been interesting. So transforming Bruce Wayne figures were always pretty good for Batman. And so this was going to be a training Bruce Wayne / Tengu. He came back after he got his back broken by Bane and was this character Tengu, which means bat in some fashion. And so this would have been transforming Bruce Wayne with the mask and maybe some add-on things. Sadly, this one never came out. Alan, your inside baseball niche is why I'm here. Also, you tell things from an artist perspective, which is my wheelhouse as well. Awesome. Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it and feel about it. Just why we do this stuff. It's kind of cool. I very much never I thought of myself as a creative artist within this weird marketing system, and if I could get to the bottom of what they wanted, I would be able to give them what they wanted and keep what I wanted to do in the picture at the same time. That is to say, I didn't need their approval. I needed to get them on my side so that I could just do what I wanted to do. So you need a big projectile. Oh, you need something that works in the commercial. Oh, you need something that's chrome. Or you want something that's bright. Or, you need something that moves. Okay, I can do that. And I would, then come up with different ideas that felt right to give them that. Different, later I might have gotten in a different spot, but these early days, just trying to give the brand, the character, kind of what worked and what they needed. So that was that. So we're at 10 o'clock. Give me a second real quick. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. So I had another book that I couldn't find of some old wax photos. Would have been a little bit later than my first day, but couldn't find those. But then this is the sketchbook that I was keeping at the end of 94 through June of 95. Try to find a Batman related something here. Oh yeah. Wow. Batman was a big deal at Kenner. Just the nature of the character and what it meant to the company. Oh, okay. So here's this is the poster reference that I was working on at the time. I had the wrong sketchbook. I knew I had all these different things. Where is the Batman? So everybody had to come up with, we would meet every couple of weeks and just pitch ideas. People had made those models or drew up boards. One of the things on the Bobby Valla podcast that I talked about Batman Animated, for those of you that watched it, I talked that there was a certain point back then that we might have had 28 projects, 50 projects was a lot. That was because we were doing everything in-house. Everything. We did the concept boards. We had to render them. We had to dream them up, concept them, present them, do the technical work, the sculpt input, the deco, the pattern drawings, all the engineering, signifying, do you want that to be glossy or satin or matte or all of that. And when you do every component of a given toy, you can only do so many in a given year. As we started using outside resource vendors and artists and creators to kind of, hey, I need this, and brief them out, and you'd get a bunch back. That changed, and then we were able to have product loads of 200, 500, different things. Ham Woodhouse. His name is Hampton Woodhouse. I don't really know how much is online about him. You will find his obituary, but there's not a ton. He did his toys largely in the. I think he did Bill and Ted's and Beetlejuice too. Pre-digital era. A lot of the guys that I worked with, there's just stuff's not online, and it's a shame. Alan, so when you were first hired at Kenner, what was the toy line that you were just itching to work on. Well, I initially interviewed to be part of the Predator Aliens team, and that was probably going to happen, but then those lines were kind of winding down, so that's how I ended up doing the Gargoyles test project. But then Ham moved to Batman while I was, after I had interviewed in that gap between October and December. And Gargoyles was also probably on a shorter run. And I ended up on Batman. Because the belief at the time, and let me get back to some of my other things here I wanted to talk about. So you found yourself on the Toy Armada Live. We're talking about my very first day 30 years ago at Kenner. So some of the things I wanted to touch on. In 94, they only had 2 segments of Batman. They had Legends of Batman and animated, probably like the second year of animated at that point. Aliens, Carzillas, Jurassic Park, and the Action Masters, and the Shadow were the big things for 94. I come into the company, they are actively, so the things they were working on in 94 that I wouldn't have known about were revealed in 95. And I saw right once I got there, it was the G.I. Joe Mortal Kombat, XRC had launched, Congo, Waterworld, VR Troopers, The Mask, Jim Carrey, The Mask, Gargoyles was still going. You had Batman Forever, Legends, and Animated at that point. And G.I. Joe Extreme had launched in 95. And in Nerf, you had the beginnings of what becomes the modern version of Nerf, which is the Max Force dart firing weapons. So that came out in 95. So I come in, and it was a good thing that we just kept adding segments. So Legends kept doing well. How can we do that again? That became Legends of Dark Knight. Animated was doing well, and they did the shift in style. The New Adventures, I believe they called it. So that then gave us a line shift, kind of like Unicron battles, kind of keep it going, but can be fresh to new people. And then we did Crime Squad with that, and then Mission Masters, then Detective, So Animated became an ongoing sub-segment that you could keep going with. Carzillas, yeah, that was like a car line that you'd hit this button on the back and it kind of opened up. It's a vehicle thing. Definitely a vehicle thing. It was the G.I. Joe Mortal Kombat stuff. Whatever the classic G.I. Joe form factor was. I don't think it was related to the movie as much as the game. The characters of the game. Kind of a weird one. Some people think it's prescient to where we get today. Like, how can we use this popular form factor with different brands? But at the time, boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, man, that was shocking and weird, and they weren't the right, they didn't look like the bulk of, the characters in the game. They looked like G.I. Joes, and the G.I. Joe people were they weren't ready for, like, other flavors of G.I. Joe at that point, like we would be today. So, yeah, the Mortal Kombat stuff was really polarizing at the time. Are you still in the toy industry? Yeah, I do odds and ends in the toy industry, less and less, but I try to stay into it, and I'm an independent artist largely, so things like the Patreon and my shop and what I do to sell the publishing things that I've done is kind of how I stay relevant in that pop culture world that I was once part of. But toys is going through quite a bit of change, so I'm kind of charting my own course that works for me, as much as I want to stay into it. It's a younger person's situation a little bit too, so I'm happy to kind of talk about my contributions in the old days. Would you ever do a long form episode of some of those movie lines, Congo, Waterworld, etc.? Well, I mean, we could cover what came out, but I didn't work on them, so, and I don't know some of the people that did work on them would be interested in doing that kind of long form content, or even answering questions about it if they even remembered. You know, I often talk about those old school industrial designers. These were very executional projects for them. This was before you were allowed to love it, okay? Before adults collected toys, before, you know, in large measure, before anything would have been made for an adult. We had trouble early days just trying to make something for Comic-Con, much less, you know, niche collectors. So anyway, tough to know how to do those in a long form and get good quality information out to you guys. Not something we couldn't look into, but it might be tough. In some cases, like Superman, I have contacts. We could probably talk about the adventures of Superman and some of those lines, maybe even Vortek a little bit, and Stickfuzz and things. But not every line I have a good contact with, or in some cases, they've long since left toys and or this mortal world. So, Mortal Kombat is like 50% ninja, and G.I. Joe has never relied on ninjas. Yeah, right. For some guys, it was just a job. I mean, I worked with one guy who is no longer with us, Jack Farah, who did the original. He also worked on the original Star Wars stuff. He was Mark Boudreau's boss at the time. He had a white room office. He didn't have a poster up. He didn't have a couple toys on some shelves. You would have went in there. It could have been an architectural studio. It could have been an ear doctor studio. You wouldn't have known. It was really weird. And, you know, me, I got, you know, all my crap hanging up all over it. You can't even, you know, it's just like my office here, and in Ohio, it was just, you know, it's like stacked up with toys. And then this guy had nothing. And everybody's a little different. Everybody's a little different. So for him, it was a job, you know. For me, I believed a little bit differently. I believed in my own destiny with the products I made and where they would end up. And I also knew every item is an opportunity in some way to make mass-produced, I don't want to say art, but something I can point to and say, I did that. I decided. So that was important to me in that way back then, and probably still does. Steve has a good resume to pull from. Bono, he certainly does. It's weird to think about how the longer the toy line lasts, the more play value decreases. Sometimes it ebbs and flows. Depends on the brand. In your first days, did you get to meet anyone like Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, or DC guys like Denny O'Neil? So absolutely. Not so much on animated right away. I definitely met them when I met Paul. No, we talked to him on the phone. Because we made the Harley Quinn figure, and they definitely sent me some stuff signed to me, so they knew we definitely had talked. And then I met them again when we were working on Batman Beyond, which at the time was called Batman Tomorrow, about what they were doing and what we thought, and so yeah, I would go to Comic-Con and I would see Bruce Timm and I would say hi to him sheepishly, but I would, as if I knew him. I didn't, but I had the big Hasbro behind me to kind of go, hey, I work at Hasbro, you know. So I definitely did meet with them. I went to New York more often for approvals with DC licensing in the DC building, the 666 Park Avenue. It was right across the street from the David Letterman Theater, where Stephen Colbert is now. And very cool offices. We'd go up there. We'd have meetings with for approvals, and the approval team would bring in editors. So I had many meetings with Denny O'Neil. Absolutely. There was another guy named Jordan Gorfinkel who was an editor at the time, and a few other people. Dave Irwin, who did Heavy Metal magazine for a little bit, and a lot of other things. He was at DC. He would come in for approvals. Some of the guys that ran the kind of merchandise that would find its way in, that related to DC Comics, that would find its way into the Warner Brothers store. There was a guy named Ed Bolkus, who I became friends with and have chatted to over the years. He would be in the approval meetings, and we'd vibe, and that's how things like the Legends of the Dark or Batman items would end up in the Warner Brothers store with Unique Deco. You know, Ed did all that stuff, so I'd work with him on the tooling and whatnot. So yeah, I was able to meet a lot of those guys. And then I would go to Comic-Con and meet through them. I would meet other people like Digger Mensch at Super 7 or the guy who drew JLA at the time. You know, that kind of stuff. I told the Jim Lee story not too long ago, a few years later. So yeah, they were great. Always great. You know, now Denny O'Neil, I mean, he created some great characters. Obviously, some of the best storylines at different times in Batman. You know, I'll be fair and say he didn't always understand what we were up to. You know, he's like, well, I don't need a yellow Batman, you know, or whatnot. But he didn't stop us from doing what was needed for toy sales. But he would come in and comment and talk about stuff. So, you know, this is one of the top Batman writers ever. So that was very much very cool, for sure. Favorite Batman villain? Well, I like certain villains because they look cool, and then the story-wise, I would want a different type of villain. I don't like a monster villain, even though I like drawing monsters. You did an Optimus drawing for me at Comic-Con ages ago. I still have it. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that would have been a while ago. That would have been before 2012. So that's cool. I believe cons for corporations and people who do creative stuff, you know, should be an outreach. You know, hey man, we love what we do. I'm glad you love it too. You know, let's vibe. You know, doesn't have to be a us them. You know, let's just share in the coolness that is Batman or Optimus or Snake Eyes or whatever. How many times did I meet Spielberg? I'm fortunate to say many times in private meetings, you know, of 7 or less people. I met him in my office there for the first time, as I highlighted. I wish I had the photo. I do have a photo of him in my office, but not readily available today. And then once Transformers started, I think I met him again before Transformers on something related to DreamWorks. But it was kind of interesting. I think he might have even remembered me somewhat, because we met at a big Amblin meeting, And I was kind of generally presenting the major characters of Transformers to what I considered to be movie marketing people, some of the people that would be making the movie, producers, and it takes a lot to make a movie, so everybody's got to get on the same page. So this was one of those. Lorenzo was there, kind of like, here's what we're all about to go through. So I'm doing what I was trained to do, which was present to the room. No one particularly is special. Just make eye contact, be confident in what you're talking about, and it'll go that way. Hollywood does not work that way. I found that out. There's a hierarchy, and whoever is the top dog is who gets presented to. So I found myself on if it was a big open in the middle, but like a big rectangle of a table, I was probably on the corner here. Spielberg was along the bottom over here, and like I got moved. People just kind of got out of my way, and and all of a sudden I was sitting there in this first big meeting talking to Steven about Transformers, and what I will always say is I started talking to him about Hound particularly, and he's like, oh yeah, the Jeep, I had him with my kids, and he had holograms, right? And I was just like, okay, we have just entered a new realm, right? Just ching, we have just elevated. I can now have a detailed conversation with Steven Spielberg of what I'm in charge of, because he already gets it. He is already there. He already probably knows as much as I do. So at that point, it was like, oh yeah, the jet, and then it was like vibing. And that was one of the cooler meetings, no doubt, one of the cooler meetings. But and then subsequently we would, for the movies as they went through production, and we'd have our items, or we were pitching the next movie kind of concepts. Let's do a combiner. Let's do this. We would have those presentations, and again, six, 7 people in the room. My boss, Brian Goldner, Samantha Lomo, Steven, Kathleen Kennedy sat in some of those meetings. Not too many people. Not too many people. I was low man on the totem pole. I was the guy setting up the models and getting everything lined up. It was, like those guys were there to do their business, but I was running around, don't F this up kind of mode most of the time. So Patrick, a couple dozen probably, maybe a little less, but over the first 3 movies particular, and then I had this weird DreamWorks connection, and Alan Hassenfeld liked me. I can't deny that, so I don't know if I got elevated through that or what, but it was always very smart guy, always on it, a real dude. I don't like fake people. I don't like people that use their status and power to make shit on people and make them feel small. If you've met me at a convention, I talk to everybody, no matter who and what's going on. And I can tell you, man, that guy, anything he's ever gotten, well deserved. He was a real dude, nice guy, friendly. The room we would present in Amblin, which is on the Universal lot, had all the comics and cartoons and editorial cartoons, Mad Magazine covers, anything that had E.T., Indiana Jones, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg classics. If there was a cover or that kind of stuff, it was hanging on the wall of that room. So I got to see Mad Magazine paintings of like the Jaws cover and stuff. It was just, when do you talk? I don't talk about this stuff because it seems really braggy or something. But tonight, tonight's the night. So it was really cool to go in those rooms. And all these places, everything is gratis. Like you need coffee, you need soda. What do you need to get through this presentation? You need Twister, Snickers bar, M&Ms, peanuts. There's all these places have these stashes. I love Diet 7-Up. I don't talk about my loves of things too often, but I love Diet 7-Up. And that room in Amblin had Diet 7-Up cold in the freezer. I don't know who in that place likes Diet 7-Up. It's not a normal thing to get. It's not a normal thing for people to like. But I would go in there, and I felt at home. I was like, I got Diet 7-Up. I'm about to go in and present to Steven Spielberg about our new Transformers stuff. And it was good. It was fun. It was fun. But, again, part of the job. Man, yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have a fancy chair contract. And my chair often just loses its... And I just find myself sliding down. So, his kids played with him, so he was very aware of them. He was very knowledgeable. He wasn't fronting. He wasn't an expert, but he had obviously in the 80s spent time reading the bios and remembering stuff. It was really like, I was like, okay, because Michael Bay, he was visual. He did not give a crap, right? We all know this about what happened before. He's what's new, what's next, what's sexy, what's hot. So I didn't have those conversations with Michael Bay, but I did have them with Steven Spielberg. That is true. Bumping you into Sharkticon. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Alan, I do remember I've met you, but I don't remember what you look like at this point. Yeah, I just showed up at Sharkticon, just rolled right in. I just walked in like an ass. And everybody was like, oh my God, he just left Hasbro. Like, that was fun. Yeah, they might have been spying on me, Hans. I don't know. Very cool that it was not a dig at you. I thought about that, Proto Man. I don't drink a lot of soda, but I do like Diet 7-Up. The dig on you about the chair, yes, I don't have a fancy contract with any cool Transformer chairs, but someday we'll get there. Yeah, I gotta be straight. As a kid that didn't have extra stuff, I had to kind of pull my stuff together as far as studio stuff goes. I roll with it. If I have a crappy chair, if I have a awkward table, whatever, I just roll with it. If you have to have the perfect creative scenario to do your work, I find that's the wrong focus for me. The most I like to do is have a clean office before I start a project so that I can have a clear mind. But yeah, having a chair that slips on you, it doesn't matter how many Transformers I designed. I still take care of business like everybody else. All right, 10:30. We're doing good. So that's a lot of what else can I recall about my early days at the Kenner. I did have this to show too. I do have a sample of this guy. Yep, pirate guy. Man, this doesn't have a few of the dudes. Oh yeah, it does. All right, so I did Gladiator Batman here. I worked a little bit. I did Pirate. I picked the colors for this version because this is a redeco of the basic carded figure. I remember working with Bran a little bit on that one, but he mostly did that one. And then I did the Joker. Oh yeah, you see this deluxe guy here? He had double bladed spinny things. I used that on Night Force Ninja a couple years later. So I still have a few of these toys around. Did you ever get to illustrate any of the character art on package? No, that was for Batman. You went through DC approved artists, so that was fine. Matter of fact, Toy Guys, we didn't get to that level of stuff. The only I can recall it only happening a few times, and that was because Eric Siebenaler was particularly skilled and adept. There was the OTFCC Overload redeco that Hasbro had to pay for the box to get finished and sent out to everybody that needed that or was due that when that project imploded. So Eric did the packaging on that one, and I think he did a few of the combiners for some part of Transformers. I don't remember. I think it was the RID redecos somewhere. I'll have to ask him about that. But the toy designers didn't get into, because the packaging people led all that art, and they picked their people, and they had a whole style, and there's a whole line look, and most of the time we were not in the would we have had time or anything. It was a minor miracle that we were able to get occasionally in a Dreamwave book or a BotCon book or something that was going on, the Genesis book, and get some art in it. We just usually didn't even have time. There were a lot of 2-packs. Yeah, Ninjatron, 2-packs at the time were a bigger component of the line plan. You're right. There were often 2-packs. They were either the ultimate, so like often in Batman there'd be like a Batman and Robin, and like I remember in Batman and Robin there were chrome versions, and they're often the realistic looking ones. We did them in animated. Sometimes you get a unique villain that we wouldn't do otherwise, like a Two-Face with a Batman. We did the Arkham Asylum thing. It was just another format. Toys, the basic action figure price point was still in my Batman era, so 95 to 98, let's call it. It was still driven by low price point figures, $5.99, $4.99, $6.99. Kid focused low end figures. Then the deluxes ended up being the $10.99, $9.99 to $12.99 zone. The 2-packs gave us the ability to do a $12.99, $14.99 kind of, not too much, but you throw a couple extra things in, you get 2 figures, and it like a story in a box is one way to look at that. But that's largely dropped off as figures have gotten bigger and less feature oriented. G.I. Joe did it for a while. It might just be a bygone kind of format. So, mentioned meeting you at the con because you did talk to everyone who came up to you and knew who you were. One thing I remembered well, you were just a cool dude to hang out with and talk art and toy. I try to be. I'm very confident in what I do, and I'm happy to have had the opportunity to talk about the stuff I've done and meet people who've enjoyed it and could give good, discussion back and forth. I'm just a creative guy trying to make creative stuff, and I'm happy to talk about it. I'm not snooty or think these things are more important than they are. We're all passionate about them, but they're not really important, right? It's what gets us through our days, our weeks, our months. Gives us, that's the type of stories we like to hold and tell and hear, or the types of products and stuff. So I just like talking to people about it. And again, Transformer fans continue to, honestly, in the toy world, be worth talking to. We don't have the same level of miscreants and pissed off people and asshats and everything else that some of these brands put on their creators and partners and stuff because they didn't do it right, or it's not what we like. And I gotta hand it to the Transformer guys, you and ladies. You roll with it. It's a transformative brand, and whatever comes next, you're up for it or you're not, and you'll know that something else comes. The sky will not fall if Scarlet doesn't have a shoulder pad. And so, credit to the toy line that obviously pulls a certain type of person into it that is open to change. Imagine that. I totally hopped from the animated line to the Legends line as you grew up. Yeah, that was the reasoning. That's cool. So you were into the toys, El Kevo, well before you even read the books at all. Interesting. Yeah, Sentinel Maximus. Yeah, Eric did that illustration in like a day. Because Hasbro had to send it out. We were on the hook. People had spent money. We weren't going to leave them bare. But Hasbro probably spent, I don't know, quite a bit of money to get all that put together. So we didn't have to pay another artist, even though I love giving money to Marcelo. That particular project, we did not want to spend any extra money because we were already at a loss. So that's why Eric did it. And it was fine, it's fine. So, CD Freedom, how are you? Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, I can confirm, Proto Man, drum roll please, I will be at LA TFCon. I will be. I, again, can reiterate that I talked to Colin yesterday about some potential gets there. Still trying to bring in a few people, and we made plans for me, and looks like all systems go. So if you're in the LA area, if you plan on going to that one, I will be there. So ding ding ding. Transformer has constantly been successful because its ability to elastic. Well, and continue to change, keeping that same essence. Yeah, like the puzzle play of Transformers, going from one thing to another, if you want. I think I always say this. It sounds a little cerebral, but it's the human nature to manipulate, tactile. You want to touch it. It's a sexy car. Oh, it turns into a robot, or that's a robot turns into a Ferrari. It is just so meaty, and there's so many animals and equipment and, footballs now with bots and stuff. I find its underpinnings as a product line are so humanistic that Transformers can't help but succeed if catered and taken care of and thought through. But its core proposition is just so much better. It's in line with Lego, not Batman, not G.I. Joe. Those are stories and figures and just plastic representations. This is something different. And I think you all feel that inherently. I got to be honest. It just brings out a different kind of fan, in my opinion. You mentioned the concept of story in a box for the double package figures. Do you guys have any say in those package stories? Like what you wanted to imply? Yeah, the designer's role at least Hasbro Kenner in my time, you were in charge of the look and function of the products you sold in, and you had to sell them in. And that could be under an umbrella of a particular movie or animated show, but it also had to be innovation and toy concepts. And you were responsible for that in order to explain, why this guy needed to be. We had to say, oh, he can't always get to his Batwing, so he has a smaller Batwing glider. These wings are fashioned after the wings of the Batwing from that movie. And so this is a smaller city level, through the city kind of glider that he would use. And you would do those little things because you don't want to just go in, hey, we got another Batman, there's a light in him. He fires a projectile. It has a light too. You got to be a little more sexy in selling the concept and the story. Let's see here. I think so. Everything in Batman Forever was body adaptive tech suit, which was developed exclusively for Batman's ultimate showdown with Two-Face and the Riddler. A scientifically adapted body adapted tech suit codenamed Bat actually senses and assesses danger, instantly providing weapon from within, which Batman needs for each threat. It's not just a bat suit; it's an automatic crime-fighting arsenal. So you go in with that kind of stuff to justify the toy features and the story of that battle. I hope that makes sense. That was the Overload recolor, right? Yeah. Proto, I thought you'd enjoy that one. Curious if the big retailers drove the decision making on what items got produced back then as much as they do these days. They had no say. Very little. They'd have some say in maybe some assortments that they preferred to buy heavy in, but they did not really. Some dude from Walmart or Kmart when I started wouldn't have been qualified by our standards to tell us anything. He was an order taker and saw what was happening and would make orders. It's a kind of a different thing now. Well, Alan, are you still in like North Carolina area? You're kind of in a weird zone there. Too far from Florida, Baltimore, Chicago, Toronto. Yeah. There's something about Transformers too, CD Freedom, that you're saying Transformers' willingness to change its aesthetic and try different features and gimmicks, and it's adaptable, has helped it to survive. But there's something about robots that lets you do wildly different things, wildly different concepts and toys. And if you really look at the Unicron trilogy, just as silhouettes with their features, the variety of play across those products that are largely similar price points, similar scales for that era, there's a lot of different play as well as transformation. And we love to try that stuff. And I think that is still what makes Transformers survive, and why sometimes Proto Man and I talk about the kind of fear of the endless G1 Optimus that keeps coming out in new forms and with trailer and this and with that. And it's like, the Transformers isn't, I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. Like, is G1 better? I'm not going to say Unicron Trilogy is better than G1, but like, G1 was just the first. It has its various flaws. The 80s have its own set of issues, right? As entertainment goes, the longer it goes, the older it looks. And it's like, there's a lot of entry points, and sometimes we get caught up in like G1 being like the ultimate, and they keep doing the G1 Optimus and the G1 Bumblebee and the G1 Soundwave and the G1 Starscream. And at a point, you're saying your brand is really what it started as, and anything else that ever got added is not as much. Now, I'm saying this from a big level. Obviously, they're doing Unicron Trilogy things and the Star Optimus and the 13. And I'm not crapping on what they do, but is G1 the ultimate of the brand, or was it just the first? And sometimes, that could be a whole new discussion to have, because if it's just G1 over and over and over, it's not going to help the long-term success of the brand, right? Because you're going to ultimately have, at some point, the best version of those characters. And I know a lot of you come from the Unicron trilogy that, you grew up in a endless what's next kind of place. So you might be bored of Red Optimus truck that is just every year, this again. If you grew up in a more wild version of the brand, like when I was on, what we were doing when I was on it. East Tennessee, yeah, it's hard to get. Hope you're doing good down there, post storms and everything. On the topic of retailers choosing things, how did Kmart get the exclusive Armada Prime? Did they ask for that and give a color scheme, or do you all reach out with ideas? It depends. Every one of those, Patrick, is a little bit of a different deal. You have more intimate conversations between sales teams within Hasbro and the buyers at the companies, and there's larger and micro and macro business happening, and so hey, we'll be able to pick up another X thousand, tens of thousands of this item. Could we get our own deco for that? We'll buy all this other stuff, but can we get this too? Oh yeah, not grease the wheels, but incentivize. Sometimes you'd have a partner come in and say, can we have a Bumblebee only subline, movie Bumblebee only subline? And so we'd pull stuff together. Well, we could redeco this and present ideas. So sometimes they would come with some of those kind of ideas. Other times it's like we got tooling, or they want an item that is $50 or $100, and we would go and find what was in that zone that made sense. So it kind of worked like that. Like nobody was overly heavy-handed. Sal, hi Aaron, big fan. You're a legend. Well, thank you. I have a question about Spin Master using the reuse of Batman Forever Kenner figures. Did you see that? I did see that. I haven't seen. I've heard they remolded them. At a certain point, that it might be, nostalgic, and those figures are what they are. So, I'm guessing that those figures are iconic enough that it was worth. That was the approach. But I haven't seen them. I've only seen a quick couple of pictures. Yeah, Proto, Transformers Slag podcast, you're right. We're talking 40-year brand, and G1 was really only 2 or 3 years, and even if you want to, get big elbows on it, 4 or 5, but, and again, these are all redecoed items from Diaclone, so, G1 is kind of weird. I'm not trying to start anything, but for a 40-year brand, there's a lot of love for 2 or 3 years. You're right. What worries me is the G1 designs are 70s, 80s designs. Exactly, right? They're almost 50 years old, like this guy, and yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. The designers at different times, for classics, that was my attitude. I don't want to do a Bumblebee that's a Volkswagen. I don't want to do an Astro Train that's exactly a space shuttle. I don't want to, what would they be today? How could we make them cooler today? What would it be the right form factors and details for a more modern approach? And we can debate how well we did with that, but that's where I was, until the VW Bug came back. Anytime someone brought up Bumblebee and talked about the the Volkswagen, it was like, when was the last time you saw one of those on the road? You know, like, what are you talking about? We're not going to continue to make something that people don't even know the reference. You know, and tuner cars were big, and souped up little two-doors with hatchbacks were big, and it was like, that's a more relevant Bumblebee. That was our thought process. I think G1 was a bigger deal in its time than anything since, except for the movies. I agree with that. So for people who were there at the time, it can seem like the best. But there's no best. It's all Transformers. I agree. There used to be an old meme that would go around, you know, don't hate on anybody from what they like for their Transformers. You know, we all started somewhere and it had all the different, you know, segments of Transformers, and they're all very different, and where you come in and what you're particularly into is going to affect that. And rest assured, if you don't like what's happening in these 2 years, there's probably some other stuff you're going to be interested in, and in 2 or 3 years there'll be the thing that's maybe more interesting to you. That has been the cycle over 40 years that the fans of Transformers can expect. Windcharge argue that Transformers needs a full reboot, different cast, different story, similar to Beast Wars. Hate to say it, but Optimus is old. There's nothing left to do that hasn't been made. You know, there's aspects of what you say that are true. Those are bigger kind of level discussions, and right now, until everything hits the wall, they're in that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. People know these characters, we've developed them. You know, maybe Transformers 1 is proof that, like, the next generation is like, I don't need to see the prequel to the old guy I don't care about because he's an old guy. You know, maybe they would have been better off making a Wreckers movie or something, kind of to your point, a new slice of a story. I don't know. I'm purposely going with you on it. I don't know if there's ways that could be done, but there's a lot of planning. Certainly G1 is the most recognizable, but personally I always like how RID and Unicron Trilogy Optimus was able to combine with his trailer. Yeah, you know, we had the benefit of living through G1, seeing everything that worked well, things that weren't capitalized on, to your point, and how can then we make it so? So I did have the advantage to, you know, stand on the shoulders of G1 and make a 2.0, if you will, allow me to say that, with then more emphasis on the weapons they pick, or why they're doing what they're doing, or the emotional ups and downs of certain characters' relationships that was hinted at, or could be even made more. But you know, you're right. G1, all of you, G1 is you know, it was these very dynamic Japanese toys with this very unique show that we all thought was Japanese initially, right? You know, in some aspects. And it did hit like a neutron bomb, and it's got a compelling play pattern. So that is first and foremost. Camel Moon, how are you? Oh yeah, I'm Patrick. I think as adults we often forget about the rose-colored glasses we wore as kids. That was part of my ethos at designing this stuff. Like, what has to be precious, and what is just bitching about it changing. And it's a fine line, and everybody's going to have a different place on that per character, probably. But when we were kids, there's a lot of flaws. A lot of flaws with the types of product Transformers had. You know, the articulation sucks. It's up and down. You know, so we all broke an arm along the way or whatever. You know, some of them are wildly inconsistent. You know, when you look at Wheelie to Jazz, you know, these aren't quite made the same. But we went with it, and that's a compelling story. And again, the puzzle play was, we didn't care if they didn't look good. We were, you know, doing our thing. I don't know how, Alan, I don't know how Hasbro goes about that without a dynamic leadership in that area. Again, I don't know if they're looking the same way. You laid it out there. Who was the guy who designed Batman Beyond figures? He was who I worked with. Well, I did the very first wave. The guy who took over for me was Ben Hitmar. So if it wasn't me, it was Ben Hitmar. Yeah, Hasbro needs to go there soon. Media accurate toys are great, but can only work to a point. Something needs to be developed. Well, we're in a weird spot because the production costs, the stakes are so high that it's hard to put in the hands of somebody, hey, can you recreate Optimus? You know, I did it dumb. I did it foolishly, like, oh, okay, let's do it. And not realizing the stakes that were really on my shoulders when I was doing that exactly. Now, it's $1 billion brand. Everybody knows these characters. If you mess it up or something doesn't work that you've promoted, it can be scary. It could be scary. Can I think of a relaunch reboot that surpassed the original version? Well, in quality, sure, but in sales, I don't know. But what I do know is you can't live in the past forever. You can certainly go nostalgic and make a lot of people happy for a while, but it can't be a circular thing forever. Otherwise, it's just too easy to have people fly off and like, I got all that. I got the favorite. I got the best. I got the best enough. If there's not new stuff to pull them in that's compelling, you can cycle out the magic of your brand. But I don't necessarily CD Freedom. You know, I don't hold a lot of financial knowledge to know, you know, what ones did better or not and why. Yeah, Ben Hitmar. He's with Mattel now. He did a lot of Jurassic Park product and Lightyear product. Whew, Alan, I don't know. I can't answer that one today. That's heavy lifting at 11 o'clock. I would call G.I. Joe 80s, 90s surpass the 60s, if you count that. I'd agree with that. The media profile in the 80s with comics, animation, and toys, and the commercials, cannot deny the commercials, certainly put all these brands on a better footing than anything that came before. But a lot of them were largely new. I mean, the things that don't work anymore don't work anymore. But yeah, G.I. Joe is a good example. But again, that, you know, it's G.I. Joe the brand, but very dramatically different product, all in all. Yeah, I was a small G.I. Joe kid. Not like my neighbor had the 12-inch stuff, and I just was very confused by that. I was like, I don't know what this stuff is. All right, so let's talk about back to the starting day at Hasbro. Got a few more data points here. I looked up what the video games were at the time, the most popular video games, and Donkey Kong Country 2 was about the only one I had ever heard of. So we were still doing downloadable discs on PCs. PlayStation 1 hadn't come out yet. So Super Nintendo was on its, in its, I guess, somewhat prime or downturn. So when I started in that January, the UPN had just started, and Star Trek Voyager had debuted the night before, on Martin Luther King Day, that Monday. The Kobe earthquake, that thousands died, and very famous photos of the streets and lampposts and everything. Very heaved and very destructive at the time. That was on my first day. Cotton Eye Joe, the song, was #1 in England. So that one has been annoying us for 30 years at this point, or longer. And any of you NFL football fans, the Rams announced that they are moving to St. Louis, Missouri, from LA. And they won a few Super Bowls there and moved back to LA now. So that's what's happened in 30 years for that. Yeah, so that was some more data I pulled out for my first day. Yeah, the Super NES era. That was the last NES I had for a while. I used to play Earthworm Jim quite a bit. That was the one. And Liberty and Death. Like, I played these really weird role-playing, games on that system. So I got my sketchbooks. You can check that out on Aaron Archer, or archermonster.com /shop, or /shop. And if you're interested in hearing more and seeing more of some of this art and being part of the Patreon, I am an independent artist. I don't have the highfalutin gig as I did back in the day when I made all this stuff, so every little bit of contribution does help to what I'm trying to do and stay creative and all that. So I appreciate that. Again, I'll be going to TFCon LA. Looking forward to that. I will have my sketchbooks. I will have a few of the bigger paintings, a ton of the illustration art, as well as blanks to do some customs there. I will also probably have a few more new things, some stickers and odds and ends. Ninjatron, I've been drawing something. Not necessarily for you, but I've been thinking of you. Drawing this crazy robot ninja guy for my special project. Thought of you there. Yeah, I could only get so far in Earthworm Jim. I'm not the guy that finishes too many video games. My mind doesn't work that way. I'm too, as you can see from my sketchbooks, I'm a little too chaotic to even conceive that you need to go through a sequence of moves maybe to do certain things. So that was that limited my video game action. I grew up with Atari, so I'm a dinosaur in this regard. Although a few years ago we got the anniversary Super Mario Brothers Pocket Watch that they reissued, and my son and I have we're at level 8-2 right now, almost finishing it, but we got it on Infinity Players, by the way, so don't let me front. But we're almost finished with the first Mario game. It's taken both of us to do it over time, so We are not a video game centric household. We play a lot of video games. We're just not very good at them. Yeah, Image Comics in the 90s. Big stuff. That's cool. I was in marching band. I played the drums. One of the good things a quiet artist kid could do was be in the marching band, where you're working as a team, working with other people. You got something that you're responsible for to be part of a much greater thing. There's bus trips. There's excuses to get out of classes. There's things to do on the weekends and certain practice nights. So for a sheltered artist kid, I was able to really shine, learning a lot new stuff in marching band. So I always put that out there. Marching band was one of the best things I ever did in my life. For those reasons, life lessons learned. If you're in a sport, if you're on a team, in a group of some sort, whether it be Boy Scouts or a football or some sort of thing like a marching band, that you're committed to each other to get something accomplished, you can prove to yourself you can move mountains with the right kind of people. So I definitely check out marching band if you need some of that kind of stuff. That's funny. Dave Bonner was also a drummer. He and I almost had the same birthday. He is a Marvel toy. There was a Marvel toy designer, Toy Biz toy designer. He was a drummer too. I played bass drum, and we had a giant marching band. We had over 200 people, so we had 6 bass drums, and we would tune them, 2 of them, to have. We almost had a whole octave, and we were really into it. So I look fondly at those days. I do not miss them, but it really helped me become a quality human. Being part of something like that, for sure. Stuff that helped me be a leader at Hasbro, helped me be a leader in the things that I did, and stand up for good things, and work with people to create stuff that the goal is that presentation, not your personal part. Like there's 100 people or 200 people doing this. We're all doing it together. No one's special. And toys was like that. So it was a good thing to be a part of and learn. Definitely. Yeah, game teams. If you're on a really good team, you can learn a lot of things. If you're on a really bad team, you can learn some powerful life lessons. No doubt. So with that, that is my recollection of my early days at Hasbro, working on these guys and perusing through the photos of this young man who is 22 at the time, and I was younger than some of our interns, which is crazy, but really fortunate to have gotten into a major company right out of school, to be able to contribute, to be on a brand like a Batman, who I got to meet again, Denny O'Neil, and later Spielberg, and different things. So what a I gotta be straight, what an amazing ride I was able to have. It's not the ride everybody gets in toys, but these early days, we worked. The Kenner people, I always say, they all were from Cincinnati for the large part. They were genius technicians and mech tech guys, and they, Style Boy came in, and they were more than happy to embrace me, teach me what I needed to know, leverage me for what I was good at, teach me things I otherwise would come to be a cornerstone of what I did, just with people like Ham Woodhouse, and really cool, and looking back, very fortunate to have cool stuff to talk about all these years later, and pull up old toys that were made before a lot of you were born, quite honestly, right? In some cases. So, really, really cool. Let me pull this thing out. So I was working on this a couple weeks ago, and I've sprayed it now, so it's nice and shellac and shiny. If you follow me on the Instagram, you've probably seen this kind of stuff I've been doing. So I'm pretty happy with this. Just crazy invasion image. I don't know. Don't even know what it is exactly, but that's what makes me happy. All right. With that, I think I'll call it a night. I will probably see you guys on the Transformers Slag podcast tomorrow, where we will... Proto-Man will talk over the latest Transformer news, which there's a little bit this week, and continue the conversation. So I thank everybody for talking Kenner and talking Batman and talking my origin day, and we'll get back to the regularly televised robots next week. I will be doing this more regularly in the coming months. I'll get into the whole situation when it makes sense, but I think I'm going to have a more steady schedule. With the Patreon, I'm doing a brainstorm thing where I'm going to be creating and giving my insight into that and dialoguing with the Patreon members. So I'm just going to be more active in general doing all this stuff. Sabertron Toys, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. What is the origin of Transformers animated Angry Archer name? You don't seem like an angry person. Haha. Or great question. I questioned that too for a while because I don't think of myself as an angry person. But I can guarantee you, I probably seemed to a lot of people at the time like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I could be not necessarily short, but humorless and a little fast decisions. And like, let's get this done. Okay, yep, that works. Move on. I did not like to hem and haw and belabor a lot of stuff. So I think the impression to Marty Eisenberg, the writer, and Derek maybe was like, "Ooh, that guy's a little," But at that point, I knew where we were headed and what we were doing, what we did want, what we didn't want. And I think in the classic Marvel sense of Peter Parker and Pepper Potts and Daredevil and Fantastic Four, Angry Archer just was a better moniker than anything else. So I don't think of myself as an angry person, and I don't want to be, but I definitely came off as serious at different times in some of those situations. You wouldn't have seen that necessarily at a BotCon, a little bit, but not like I was in some business meetings for sure. I was wrangling a lot of, different aspects of the IP as things blossomed. So thanks for maybe agreeing that I'm not an angry person. And I didn't know anything about it, so that character was created largely absent my contribution. So we'll have to ask Marty someday about that. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate you. Ninjatron, Transformers Slag Podcast, Proto-Man, I appreciate you being here. Alan, great discussion. T-Formers 2002, thanks for always being here. Sabertron Toys, thank you again for the super chat. Look at that guy, Randy Rockalata. Love the Glen Oak hoodie. Where can I get one of those? Randy Rockalata, ladies and gentlemen, is my oldest friend. We met each other on the monkey bars in 2nd grade and decided that we both like Godzilla, so we should be best friends. And he was my best man. I was his best man at our weddings. And that guy is gold to me. So who else we got here? Hans, thank you for the questions. Wind Charger, as always, thank you. Chris. Camel Moon, thank you. Glad you got the chance to talk to Ben back in the day. Ben Hitmar is a great toy designer, great thinker, lovely man. I did a college course where he was one of the students at Cleveland Institute of Art back in the day. Patrick, thank you. Did I get everybody here? Justin Cena, CD Freedom, El Kevo, as always. Yeah, good discussion, good group tonight. I appreciate you all being here. And yeah, Randy and I was maybe 6, might have been 7, Randy, when we met. So I'm 52 now, so I've known this guy 45 plus years. So as you guys get older, because I know some of you guys are in your 20s here, some of the dudes will linger. Some people will disappear in your life, and that's fine. They move on. Different strokes for different folks. You can have a lot of passionate friendships for a short amount of time based on location and work and different things. But then there's the people you meet along the way that become, family. And Randy and I are that for sure. Randy rock a lot of. So Randy still plays drums. He was one of in the drum section. Randy has as I have gone off and become an artist and drawn robots and my monsters and stuff. Randy's been a rock and roll drummer. Some odd jobs here and there, but his job is to be a rock and roll drummer, and has been since high school. And that's if I think the art game is tough, trying to be a musician has to be tougher. Has to be. And I got another friend, John Booth, who's a writer, and we all took the toughest creative roads I think we could take, but we're still doing it. Barely 20. Wow. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, so Randy was 7. Yeah, I was 6. So when we talk about these toys and the impacts they can have on you, Randy and I got impacted by Star Wars, very much Star Wars, and then for me a little bit J. Joe, and we also shared Hot Wheels cars. And here we are, I'm still talking about this stuff. It's still, we all grow up with this stuff, and it impacts us however it impacts us, and it gives us solace and comfort or fond memory or closure or therapy. So yeah. Yeah, I was a drummer, but not like you guys. I did drumming as a hobby in high school. I was an artist, and drumming was the hobby. A lot of people, didn't see that part. They thought all of us music people, that was our hobby. But yeah, Randy, you've delivered some pizzas. I'll give you that. But you played a lot. You've broken a lot of cymbals. Anyway, I can ramble here with Randy forever. Again, thanks everybody. Again, thank you for the super chat, Sabertron Toys. I appreciate you. Again, I'm an independent artist, so if you have any interest in my sketchbooks, my artwork, a commission, I sell old Transformer books from my collection on the website as well. Check out archermonster.com. If you're into supporting people that you're into, check out the Patreon. I'm trying to bring a lot of stuff behind a paywall that I wouldn't want to show publicly. Pattern drawings and odds and ends that I find. So we're doing that. And if you just want to check out the art I do, Aaron Archer Official on the Instagram, and check out what's happening. So that is what's going on. Randy. Yeah, my mom, when I was a freshman, she gave me you weren't going to sit at home and just draw all day every day. You can be in the band, you can join the debate club, or you can be a wrestler. Those were my 3 options. And I had a few friends that were in band, so that's what the direction I went. I did not know how to play anything. We had a new band director who happened to be also a drummer. And he's like, you'll start on cymbals and we'll teach you. He just wanted people in the band that wanted to be there, and so I played cymbals in the marching band my first year. Learned how to play timpani and the xylophone a little bit, and that was my thing. I didn't do snare drum ever. I didn't do quads ever. Did some practice, but I was the chime guy. I was definitely the timpani guy, so I could tune the drum. But yeah, band was fun. Oh, Kevo, thank you. Have you got your packet yet? Did your folder come? I'm curious. Some of the stuff I sent the other day has already come through. Yeah, Randy and I spent a lot of time playing, mostly Star Wars, I guess, and playing in the woods, making forts. All that good stuff. Listening to Bill Cosby records when that was still kosher to do. But again, I could talk about this all night. Oh, cool. Did it come intact? I hope so. Hope you enjoyed it. I tried to put a bunch of fun stuff in there. So El Kevo is one of my Patreon benefactors, and he got the big packet. So he got a lot of interesting stuff from my deep in my archives and stuff I just stashed away over the years. Yeah, Randy got a Godzilla image for his wedding gift from me. So, anywho, so with that, I'm gonna go eat some pizza and call it a night. I will see you guys tomorrow. Again, I thank you all for everything, and we'll do it again next time. All right, I appreciate you. Thank you.